A man in his 60s slides a folder across the table and says the number out loud for the first time in his life. You are 31, you have $90,000 in savings and a name nobody in this room has heard before. By the time this story ends, you will own 20 companies and roughly $500 million of other people's life work. Here's the part that doesn't get said enough. More than half of the people who start exactly where you're starting today will never make it past this table. He spent 31 years building what's inside that folder, and the part nobody warned him about is that there's almost no one left he actually trusts to hand it to. So the folder slides towards you, not because you're impressive, because you're one of the few people still sitting in the chair. You are 31 years old, and right now you are not buying anything. You are looking. You've built a spreadsheet with 900 businesses pulled from broker listings and county records. And looking, it turns out, is a full-time job that pays nothing. The model has a name now, self-funded search, and the math behind it is almost insulting in how honest it is. You want a business generating around $1 million a year in sellers' discretionary earnings, the actual cash an owner takes home. Businesses that size typically sell for 3 to 3.5 times that number, so you're hunting for a price tag near $3.5 million. You have 90,000. That gap is the entire problem you have to solve. You learn to read a profit and loss statement the way a mechanic listens to an engine. The man who built this business has been running his truck payment, his wife's salary, and a boat loan through the company for a decade, and untangling his real number from the story he tells himself is the actual skill nobody teaches you. Every dollar of those personal expenses you can defend adds $3 or $4 to what a buyer will pay, so you fight for everyone. You also learn the difference between the deals everyone can see and the ones almost nobody does. Listed deals are already picked over and bid up by people with deeper pockets than yours. The real edge is proprietary. The owner who hasn't decided to sell yet reached before a formal process and a bidding war exist. So you start mailing the ones who've never raised their hand. The first business you fall in love with dies before it ever reaches a closing table. The numbers look clean until you ask one unglamorous question. Who are your 3 biggest customers? A single account makes up 60% of revenue, and its contract comes up for renewal in 8 months, with nothing lined up behind it. That isn't a business. That's one phone call away from being nothing. No bank would lend against it, and neither should you. You walk away and it costs you 2 months and a lawyer's bill. This is also where most people like you quit, somewhere between the 10th dead deal and the morning it lands that nobody is going to hand you anything for free. It's worth sitting with a number most people leave out of this story. More than half of the people who start this exact search never close a single deal, not because they weren't smart enough, but because the gap between looking and buying is wider and lonelier than anyone admits going in. You send 41 letters in a single month, you get 2 replies. One of them is the folder. What you don't know yet is that it's going to cost you everything liquid you own, plus your name on a piece of paper you can never take back. You are 32 now. The folder turned into a number, and the number is $3,800,000. You do not have that. So you learn how a person with $90,000 buys something worth almost $4 million. The answer is that you don't buy it, the bank does. You just sign for it. The instrument is a government-backed loan called an SBA 7A, lending up to $5 million against exactly this kind of acquisition. The bank funds about 80% of the price. The seller carries a note for 10 to 15%, meaning the man across the table is lending you a piece of his own asking price and betting on a buyer he met weeks ago. You write a check for the last 10%, $380,000. You have 90. You raise the rest from 2 old colleagues who take a slice of the company for it. Then you learn the trick that buys you room to breathe. The seller's note can count toward your own required equity, but only if it sits on full standby, meaning he can't collect $1 of principal or interest for the first 2 years. So you ask a man who spent 3 decades building this business to wait 2 years before he sees a cent of that piece, and he agrees because he wants this deal to close as badly as you do. But before any of it becomes real, the bank's accountants run a quality of earnings review and find the seller has been counting a chunk of next year's deposits as this year's revenue. It's a small thing on paper, it nearly kills the entire price. Then there's the working capital peg, fighting over exactly how much cash, inventory, and unpaid invoices the seller has to leave inside the business on closing day. Because if he sweeps the accounts clean on his way out, you inherit a company that can't make payroll in its first week. You win that argument, but only by inches. Then the lawyer slides one more page across the table. Because you'll own more than 20% of the company, you're required to sign an unlimited personal guarantee. The bank takes a lien on your house. If the business fails, you don't just lose the business, you lose the place where you sleep at night. You sign anyway. The seller shakes your hand, and for the first time, you notice he looks relieved. Not richer, Relieved, you are 32 years old and $3 million in debt, and tomorrow you have to walk into a building full of people who've worked there longer than you've been an adult and tell them you're in charge now. Nobody looks up at you on your first morning. You learn exactly what your name on a loan document is worth on an actual shop floor. Nothing. The general manager, who's run this place for 19 years, answers your questions like every word costs him something. The woman who does the books has a faster, more honest read on the company's real margin than you do. This is the level that quietly ends most people's ambitions. You took on $3 million of debt to buy yourself a job, and your salary is $200,000 a year, except the loan eats the cash before you ever see most of it. You learn the one number the bank actually watches: debt service coverage, the ratio between the cash the business throws off and the loan payment it owes. The bank wants that cushion at roughly 1.25. The month it dips below 1, the payment starts coming out of money the business doesn't have. So you raise prices the previous owner was too tired to raise himself. You fire the customer who's been paying 90 days late since 2009. You sit with the 19-year general manager and ask what he'd fix if the place were still his. Then go do 3 of the 4 things he says. On the 4th morning after that, he finally looks at you when you walk in. By year 3, after the loan and taxes, you're clearing close to $800,000 a year, and the fear is dulled into just another number on a statement. That's the trap of this level. You are comfortable. Most people stop right here, but the folder taught you something the comfortable version of you hasn't learned yet. 10,000 more business owners turn 65 every single day in this country, and you just proved you know how to swallow one. You are 36 now. You own 1 business outright, and you're about to buy a second, then a third, using the first as the engine. This mechanism is the part nobody outside the industry ever sees, and it's the entire reason a holding company exists at all. You keep buying companies one at a time at 3 to 3.5 times earnings, because at that size, the price is tied to one tired owner's personal income. But the instant 2 or 3 of these businesses sit under the same roof, sharing bookkeeping, trucks, and a back office, the combined thing stops being priced like a small Main Street shop and starts being priced like a real company. The same dollar of profit worth 3 times its value alone is suddenly worth 6 or 8 times more inside something bigger. You're not getting smarter, you're buying the same earnings cheap and holding them somewhere they're worth double. That gap has a name: multiple arbitrage, the closest thing to free money left in the economy. This is where you stop being an operator and become an allocator. You hire a CEO to run the first business, a controller to keep the books across all of them. Your calendar stops being about the shop floor and starts being about the next deal, the next tired owner deciding whether you're the one he can trust, but you're also borrowing against borrowed money now. And every new acquisition adds another personal guarantee, another lien, another business that has to perform, or the whole structure starts leaning. One deal closes in March, a roofing company, and the owner dies of a heart attack 6 weeks after the sale. His foreman quits the same week. You own a business with almost nobody left who knows how it runs. The cushion you spent 4 years building goes thin in a single quarter, and you're awake at 3 in the morning running math you've already run 100 times, hoping it comes out different. If you've made it this far into a story about losing sleep over debt you signed your name to, you're honestly exactly who this channel exists for. So a subscribe genuinely helps more than you'd think. The roofing company survives because you promote the dispatcher who is actually running the place and double her pay before she can think about leaving. You are 40 years old. You own 8 businesses now, and the thing you've built finally has a real name of its own. It isn't a pile of separate deals anymore. It's a holding company. The shift at this level is that you stop buying companies and start building the machine that buys companies. You set up a central management company above all 8 businesses, handling the accounting, insurance, hiring, and financing that every one of them used to do badly alone. Each company pays a management fee up to the parent, and that fee is how cash climbs from the businesses on the ground into the holding company at the top, structured so the money pools somewhere you can aim it at the next deal. You learn the most ruthless trick in the entire model here. Once this business you own has paid its original loan down, you refinance it, put fresh debt back onto that company, and the new borrowed cash gets paid up to you as a dividend, while you still own 100% of it. People call this a dividend recap. It means you can pull your original $90,000 back out many times over. Without ever selling a single thing, the risk moves back onto the business, the cash comes home to you. And that's when you face the real decision. Every voice in the industry says the same thing: package up the 8 companies and sell the platform to a private equity firm for a number with a lot of zeros. The other option is to never sell, to hold forever, to just keep compounding, because these businesses keep paying every year, and a sale only pays once. You sit with both numbers on a quiet Sunday and make the call that decides what the next 20 years of your life look like. You don't tell anyone yet which way you're leaning. You held. That's the decision you made that Sunday and never announced. You don't sell the 8 companies to anyone, and you don't sell the next 12 either. You are 47 years old now. The $500 million is real, and it looks nothing like what you imagined at 31, 20 companies. Industrial filters, roofing, an HVAC business, a commercial laundry operation, a pest control route, a regional plumbing company. None of it glamorous, all of it throwing off real cash every month, generating hundreds of millions in revenue, with your equity across the whole structure worth roughly $500 million on paper. You can see the entire board now, a view the comfortable version of you at level 3 could never have seen coming. Researchers have tracked this exact model back to the 1980s, and the numbers hold up. Aggregate returns across hundreds of these journeys land around 34% annually, with total returns near 5 times the original money invested. This was never just a story, it's documented and repeatable, which is exactly why the water you used to fish alone in is getting crowded fast. Match funds like yours now account for roughly 1 out of every 8 mid-sized business sales in the country, more than double what that number was 3 years ago. The private equity firms have noticed what you noticed years ago. One major firm owns a home services roll-up that looks a lot like yours, just funded with billions instead of a wire from someone's savings account. Another reportedly bought a platform in this exact space at over 18 times earnings, multiples you could never have matched when you were paying 3 times earnings for the same boring businesses. They're running your exact strategy now at a scale you never had. But you have something they structurally cannot have. They run on a clock. A private equity fund buys a platform, bolts on acquisitions for 4 to 7 years, then has to sell because its investors were promised an exit by a certain date. You promised no one anything like that. You can hold forever. You can keep a 70-year-old founder's name on the door because you're never planning to flip the building out from under him. So when a seller in his 60s slides a folder across a table to you now, you can say the one sentence no private equity buyer can honestly say back to him, that you will not gut his company in 3 years to dress it up for the next buyer. That single sentence wins you deals that money alone cannot buy. You make the largest acquisition of your life this year, and at the closing table, the seller is roughly your own age. He looks at you across the folder the exact way you once looked across it from the other side. You realize you've become the person you were once terrified of becoming at 32. You still haven't answered what any of this was actually for until a much older man makes you answer it. Go back to the very first folder, the man in his 60s who slid it across the table 16 years ago, the one who looked relieved instead of richer. You stayed in touch with him in a way you never did with most sellers because he was the first one who trusted you. Over a lunch he insists on paying for, years later he finally tells you something he never said at the closing table. 3 other buyers looked at his business before you did. 2 were bigger, better funded, offering more money and a faster close. He turned both down because in the polite language of the industry, both told him the same thing, that their first move would be replacing his people and selling the whole thing again within 5 years. It's worth understanding how little support most owners like him actually have. Fewer than a third of business owners his age have any formal plan for what happens when they step back. Fewer than 1 in 5 have ever had the business properly valued. He wasn't choosing you because you were the smartest option in the room. He was choosing the only person who seemed to understand that his 31 years of work were worth more than the number attached to them. He didn't want to be flipped. He wanted his life's work to keep existing after his name came off the lease. There are roughly $10 trillion of business value sitting in the hands of people his age right now, and most of the systems built around that money are designed to treat it as inventory waiting to be flipped for a profit. Researchers studying this wave estimate millions of these businesses will hit the market before this decade is over, and 4 out of every 5 will never find a buyer at all. When they don't, the jobs disappear along with them, and 31 years of one person's work simply ends. You didn't win this game because you were the sharpest allocator in any room. You won because you were willing to promise the one thing almost nobody holding real money is willing to promise, that you'd let the thing keep living. That's the quiet question this industry produces and almost never answers, honestly. The economy needs someone to catch the 10,000 owners aging out every single day, and it rewards whoever promises to flip them the fastest. The man who spent 3 decades building something real has to bet the rest of his life's work on a stranger's word about what happens after he's gone. You kept your word to the first one. The folder is still sitting somewhere in your files today. And even now, at the top of a $500 million company, You're honestly not sure the system would have let you climb this high if you'd been just a little more upfront about how much faster the money moves when you don't keep that particular promise. If this is the kind of story you want more of, the honest mechanics behind the money, not just the highlight reel, leave a comment telling me which level you think you'd actually survive. Subscribe if you want to see where this model goes next. And if you know someone who's ever thought about buying a business instead of starting one from scratch, send this to them.